Hano hano Hawaii I moku o ke awewe I wehi maui o ka ma. Mahala malama ka ho'ola wewe na wenala na I o ka ulu. Luhi e humolo ka inu I a hina nani o ahu o ka kuhi hewa. Wale a kaua I o mano no weoni I hau o ka helelani. He leo, he welina, he aloha, aloha e. Aloha kākou. Welcome to this installment of Mele Huliāmahi. We'd like to thank our sponsors right off the bat, Kanaio Kana, Kahuli Leo Lea, and my name is Kori Pueopata. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Lance Collins. Today we're going to celebrate the community, groups, and families of Maui, and we're going to do this through mele and mo'olelo, through song and through narrative. To introduce our theme today of Mele Huliāmahi, we'd like to toss this all the way to the island of Oahu, to our good friend Zachary Alakailam. Zach?
Aloha kako. Mahalo Pueo and Lance for bringing us along another episode of Mele Huliāmahi. To our sponsors, North Beach West Maui Benefit Fund, HK West Maui Benefit Fund, and production partners Kahuli Leo Lea and Kanaio Kana, mahalo nui for making our third episode a reality. If this is your first time watching Mele Huliāmahi, we encourage you to watch our first two episodes on Kanaio Kana or at kahulileolea.org. Our program is simple. We feature mele, expertly crafted Hawaiian songs, and with the help of our hosts, we curate this experience so that we may enjoy these mele on multiple levels. Yes, these mele are beautiful and entertaining, but even more valuable is the information, the data encoded in these words and expressions. This data, it's not only about personal experience, limited to those who already know the story. This data is interwoven with the information that makes up our home. Literally, the names of our peaks, valleys, waters, oceans, and so much more. This information, it's not token. They play an important role in understanding our place and our role in this place. These songs document and encourage Huliāmahi. Huliāmahi means to gather, to organize, and cooperate toward a unified goal. Ultimately, this goal is aloha aina, that is to restore and maintain the balance between kanaka and aina. The goal of these mele is for us to realize that these two concepts are not different, kanaka and aina. We as kanaka, as people, are a part of the system of existence that determines our reality in Hawaii. And this system is called aina. And the more unified we are in thought, in values, and in aspirations, the better equipped we are to play our role in a sustainable future. These mele are just first steps, open doors for you to consider and explore. Your ears will enjoy the sounds of some of Maui's proud artists. Perhaps you'll feel something too. And in this feeling, we find the embers of aloha aina, waiting to unite with so many others in Huliāmahi. Enjoy these mele, and mahalo for joining us. Pueo and Lance, back to you folks on Maui. Aloha.
Mahalo nui e Zach. So last month, we celebrated the release of Leina Honua Pi'ilani na Mele Ho, which is this album right here. And it's the younger sibling of Leina Honua Pi'ilani, Songs of West Maui. Those were the older songs, traditional songs you might say, and this album has contemporary songs. All of these mele featured on these albums, along with others, there's a total of 70 in this book, are found here, Leina Honua Pi'ilani. The two albums, Leina Honua Pi'ilani, can be bought exclusively at mele.com. Very valuable because they contain the liner notes, and the puke can be found at Kamehameha Publishing. So please support that. The proceeds for this go to Naleo Kalele, which support West Maui's immersion schools. This month, however, we're going to celebrate more mele from this project, but we're also going to celebrate the release of another album of Mele Huliāmahi. And of course, It's appropriately entitled Huliāmahi Volume 1. Huliāmahi Volume 1. You can get this at mele.com. Know that mele are unique for their ability to hold so much information in so few words. Very concise. These mele in particular tell today's stories of aloha aina, and thus the liner notes are important to have. They are resources that belong to the rest of your library, so include them in there because you'll be able to reference them forever and ever. Make sure to get your copy of the liner notes by buying the CD, mele.com. And for the new album, Huliāmahi Volume 1, all the proceeds will go to benefit the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation. You can also find your favorite Leina Honolua Pi'ilani CDs and songbook at Kamehameha Publishing. Even though this program is pre-recorded for your enjoyment, Lance and I are also watching this live, though, with you right now. So feel free to chat with us. Type your comments in. We'd love to interact with you. And mahalo to the many organizations that are cross-posting our program this evening, and the ones who have also helped us by cross-posting our programs of the past. We encourage you to share this stream so that these mele and the mo'olelo are heard across Kapai Aina and wherever Kapo'i Hawaii exists, along with our hoa. Let us do these so that they're heard, known, and celebrated. Once again, if you've watched the past two presentations, all of the mele and the mana'o that we present through these presentations are available for download at waihona.net. Waihona.net. This time, I'm so excited to introduce the first two mele of our program, places that are dear to my heart, composers that are dear to my heart. The first one is composed by Ka'iu Kalani Damas and his wahine, Kili Rivera, and their mele is called Pukuilua. So disagreements over Aina ownership and quiet title are too often commonplace throughout our Pai Aina. While some cases may not end in the most ideal way, the beauty and ohana of the place continue to persist. Now, Pukuilua does just this. It enshrines fond memories, nohona, and aloha at Pukuilua Hana, here on Maui, a mainstay for the kupau ohana. Aloha e ka ohana kupau. Haupu ka mana'o i ka hali'a, a reminder of lovely times past at Pukuilua. And the second mele that we'll be presenting is another place dear to my heart. It was written also by Ka'iu Kalani Damas and his wahine Kili Rivera. The name is Malama Kakanilua. This mele celebrates the hui, Malama Kakanilua, that has been involved in a number of lawsuits aimed at protecting iwi kupuna, the bones of our ancestors, in the face of sand mining and modern development. Their work originally focused around the famed Pu'uone Sandu complex. It also extends to the vast plains of Kama'oma'o. Malama Kakanilua honors and encourages the kupa, the citizens, both past and present, to continue their work to protect the iwi kupuna laid to rest in this special kula iwi. We present to you now the first two mele of our Huliāmahi series today. Aloha.
Ai, ai, kala i ke kamani me kani una malula e hoi ke aloha I Pukuilua iau ka pumehana olu I kana e hoi ke aloha I Pukuilua iau ka pumehana olu I kana iau ka pumehana olu I kana Oni ke kula o ka ma'o anapa napa mau I ka la ahela vela I ka manawa hahana mai ana I ka piko e o e ka hui malama kakanilua nā mamo aloha o ka āina e pane mai ka leo hane hane I nā hana ke kino I viola Uana ia ka loa me ka laula a ike I ka nani o kuhome mai ke kai hone o ka maalaia ke kai holu holu o ka hului e o e ka hui malama kakanilua nā mamo aloha o ka āina e pane mai ka leo hane hane I nā hana ke kino I viola e pane mai ka leo hane hane I nā hana ke kino I viola
Holy moly, I love hearing brand new mele for places that I love. And the composers, well, one, to have the composers sing, and then also to have an intergenerational singer, it blows my mind. That is continuity, that's culture. For Pukuilua, I used to travel to around that area almost 20 years ago for about 2 or 3 years. And I would see the land there. You come past Pu'uiki, go through, I think, Pohue, and then hit Pukuilua into Ha'o'u. And I know the families there. And to have Zachary Lorenzo, a young person who is a descendant of Hana, it reminds me of Auntie Sissy Kupau from that area, who worked with the youth of Hana and who brought so many of them up through music, took them all over the islands. So Pukuilua, kind of to huddle together, that's what this is doing. It's bringing the older generation together with the younger generation, and I just love that concept. Lance, any thoughts or memories about Pukuilua?
Well, I thought the song was just very beautiful, and it reminds me of all of my memories of being at Pukuilua, and also of the great love that I felt from the Kupau family, and also that I have for them, both for the generation of Auntie Cece and her nieces and nephews, and also her grandchildren or grandnieces and nephews.
Yeah. My goodness, and just the warmth of that land is felt through that particular mele. Again, that's a type of warmth that alludes to the meaning of the name, you know, to kind of come together. I really do love that. For Kakanilua, Malama Kakanilua, that mele, just looking at the lyrics, I know that it pulls from older mele and older olelo no eau. And something that I thought was kind of cool was, you know, each island has its own, we do have dialectal differences, but we also reach for different words differently. So, for instance, Manoa speakers will reach for imi, where UH Hilo speakers will reach for huli more often, and depending. But on other islands, people, when they say something is hot, they say vela. And on Maui, I was told by Uncle Jimmy Akiona, he said, he asked, he was living in Kona, he's from Ke'anai, and he said, peha o ai sa mai kai, I said, ua vela. He said, a'ale vela ke ia, hahana. Vela ka mea ke pāku, he hahana ke ia. Vela loa, hahana lua. Which basically means, that's not vela. Something is vela when you touch it. This is considered hahana. And if something is called vela loa somewhere else, here on Maui it's called hahana lua. And so in their mele, Ka'iu and Kili put the word hahana, and I just love that tie to Maui. Whether it's intentional or not, it was meant to be. So on this album that we're celebrating today, Huliāmahi Volume 1, Kakanilua is actually mentioned in multiple songs. So Lance, what's the significance of that?
So that's a good question. You know, the group Malama Kakanilua has been involved in many struggles related to the pu'uone, and also they're involved in some things in other parts of Maui. And because their work is so extensive, they have accumulated several mele about their work. And so not that the other groups that are honored with mele in this album aren't important. It's just that Malama Kakanilua has been involved in so many things, and of course it's a Hawaiian organization with lots of cultural practitioners, that it has just accumulated a lot of mele, and so it just happens that in this album there are three separate mele that discuss or talk about different aspects or focuses on different parts of their story and their work.
Processes they're going through. So something that strikes me, Kakanilua is such a hallowed place from Maui's cultural standpoint. Last year in July, I was able to spend 4th of July in Boston, and they have a big celebration, of course, and they have this thing called the Freedom Trail. And the Freedom Trail takes you along areas of Boston that are so important to history. And we came across this site called the Boston Massacre. Now, the Boston Massacre is a hallowed place. There's a big circular memorial on the ground, and people, you know, were standing up, but they would say, could you please move off of it? And really treating this place very, very hallowed. Kakanilua, na'e, the last battle there was in the 1770s. Is Hawaiian history from the 1770s as valid as U.S. history from the 1770s? Shall we say, like Declaration of Independence or things like that? Are they still valid? Yet, the Boston Massacre, where 5 people died, is a hallowed place. Yet the battlegrounds of Kakanilua are able to be mined for sand and built over and shoved aside. So there's a little bit of a jab there to my heart, to my na'au. So we have to kind of change our mindset. Kakanilua is so hallowed, and so I'm actually happy that there are multiple mele on this Huliāmahi Volume 1 that lauds this such an important place for Hawaiian culture, especially here on Maui. Now, the next two mele, I know the composer. I composed these two mele. The first one that's going to come up is going to be called O Olowalu I Ke Kai Mopua. And I wrote this in support of stream connectivity and a healthy ecosystem. And actually this mele was inspired by the unified voices of that community, Save Olowalu and Maui Tomorrow Foundation. And they came together to oppose a very large seawall that was they wanted to build there. O Olowalu I Ke Kai Mopua, the melody illustrates the landscape and the places of that area. Names that aren't really said too often today, but that are so important to remind us that our kupuna were so intimately familiar with the land, every feature was named. The second song is called Aloha Ia no o Honolua. This mele honors the work of Save Honolua Coalition at one of the 6 famed bays of Honua Pi'ilani. And this is, of course, Honolua here on Maui. Withstanding the waves of development at Lipoa Point, there at Honolua, Ua Malu Mau, it's now perpetually protected by the Hawaiian Islands Land Trust and as a state marine life conservation district. We present to you the next two mele of our Mele Huliāmahi.
5, 6, 7, 8. Oh Honolua he kanalu pole ua malu mau aloha ia no a o Honolua he kanalu pole ua malu mau hano hano ke kula a o ka e ai ka po e ka e a e a he aloha ai na hano hano ke kula a o ka e ai ka po e ka e a e a he aloha ai na kumai na naru a oli po no ke kai lipo lipo he alo e hu kumai na naru a oli po no ke kai lipo lipo he alo e hu ua pili mai no a o moku e ia e vai lei i ke aloha hoki pa ua pili mai no a o moku e ia e vai lei i ke aloha hoki pa a o Honolua I malama mauhia e ka lehu haina kainoa a o Honolua I malama mauhia e ka lehu
Oh my gosh, it's so satisfying to me as a former teacher to see my students sing. And Oloalu ke kai mopua. Mopua is the name of a kupua from the area, but also mopua means soft-voiced or sweetly voiced. And I wanted it to be a juxtaposition to Oloalu, which can mean loud. But when I thought of who I wanted to sing the mele, Pukuilua Wood came up because his entire ano, his entire being is, to me, mopua. It's so easygoing and so genuinely nice, and he did a wonderful job with that. Thank you, Pukuilua, mahalo nui. And you know, the mentioned in there is Lihauwai eke eke kalani. We have place names in here. We have Punahoa and also Kilea. And they say that Punahoa and Kilea are the parents of Lihau. And when we have mo'olelo that tell us genealogies, they're telling us that somehow these features, their geographic forms or their topographic forms are somehow intertwined, somehow related. The genealogies are also tied to humans. And so in a Western sense, there is no way for a human to be tied in a genealogy form or genealogical form to something in nature. And that shows a big chasm between Western mindset and traditional Hawaiian mindset, wherein the genealogies say we're interconnected with things in nature, and that actually reflects our interdependence on each other as beings who live in the same environment. Not a difference between a human perhaps and a plant or a human and a hill. We are all interconnected. Just as in a Western form, genealogies connect ancestors to their descendants. And then for the mele for Honolua, Kaulike, his voice makes me want to dance to my own song, and that's kind of weird. We don't really do that, but I'm going to do it anyways. You watch. Kaulike Peskaya, he actually got into chaos after I had left, but I was able to watch him grow, and I'm so happy he was able to sing that mele. Lance, for the issues regarding Honolua, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So with Honolua, I'm sure everybody on Maui knows the story, but you know, it was designated as a conservation area, resource conservation area in the 1970s. The state worked with the fisher folk and surfers. And then in the maybe 15 years ago, the large landowner out there wanted to make that whole area into luxury development. Mm-hmm. And of course the community opposed it. They want that place to stay primarily in a, you know, conservation rural situation where the Kuleana families are basically the only people who are living there. And so the community came together and they created Save Honolua Coalition. I actually helped them incorporate as a nonprofit, and they were successful in galvanizing the community and the state legislature and the county council all together to come up with the funding to purchase the lands from the large landowner, so that they could be held in trust for everybody going forward. I think that's you end your Mele with that. Yeah.
So what I tried to do was take the actual verbiage and then turn it into a way that's presentable to Hawaiian ears. So I tried. Anyhow. Beautiful. This, the CDs that we've been presenting to you, Leina Honua Pi'ilani, Songs of West Maui, Leina Honua Pi'ilani na Mele Hou, and also this one, Huliāmahi Volume 1, they are available exclusively through Mele.com. So make sure you buy the CD to get the liner notes. These are the mo'olelo that continue to shape our island and her people. And future generations hopefully will be affected by the good work that's been encapsulated in these mele. The proceeds from Huliāmahi Volume 1 will go to Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, and we all know we can always use the funds for that, so please support us. Go to Mele.com and purchase Huliāmahi Volume 1. The next two mele that we're going to introduce represent places in the kalana of Lahaina, and that's in the moku of Lahaina. The next mele up is called Lapakui ka moku ka wahine o Pele, and I composed this song. While honoring Kanaka who fought to protect lands at Wahikuli from being sold and removed from the Crown Lands Trust, this mele reminds listeners about the very creator of Wahikuli. We're taught that this is Pele. The many features of aina created by this akua wahine are now used by kama'aina of the area for farming and for fishing. And the mele after that was composed by my hoa kumuhula, Iliahi Paredes, and it's called Naniwale Pau Nau. This song commemorates the work of the various community groups who have fought to protect their communities. Michelle Lincoln, her neighbors along Kahoma Channel, and the tenants at Front Street apartments. Naniwale Pau Nau is also dedicated to Samuel Kalani Ako, a kama'aina and a celebrated musician of the area. You're going to love these.
o Pele.
Nani wale paunau I ka uike I ka holu a ka lau Niwa hoa pili Nani wale paunau I ka uike I ka holu a ka lau Niwa hoa pili Pili mai ke one O ke awaiki Me kanalu o uo Hai muku muku mali Hie hie o pa'u pa'u Kau mai I luna Kanani ka hela hela O ne ia aina He aina momona Kamalu ulu o holele Ua ka he ka vai ola Vai o ka homa He home aloha ke ia No malo kane Ka loko I a kaulana O alamihi Hia ai ka mana'o Ke honi aku Kalimu ala O moku hinia Haina ia mai Ana ka puana Nani wale pauna I ka uike Haina ia mai Ana ka puana Nani wale pauna I ka uike He mele keia nou e ana kala Samuel kalani ako
Gosh, I just love this experience, being able to witness these mele for the first time. Of course, we're commemorating the release of Huliāmahi Volume 1. Go to mele.com. To see these videos and the people singing the expressions, it's much more than just listening to the CD itself. But what you're lacking from the actual performance are the liner notes. So get your copy, mele.com. La Paku I ka moku ka wahine o Pele. I wrote that song because here on Maui we have very, very specific stories about Pele. They're not like the Hawaii versions of the Mo'olelo or the Oahu or the Kauai versions of Mo'olelo regarding Pele. We have our own versions of Pele. And a lot of what I learned about Pele on Maui comes from this kumu. Once again, I mentioned her last month, and Diane Amadeo. her lineage is very closely tied to the Pele lines. Now, on Maui, when Pele is often mentioned, it actually refers to the geology or the geologic features that are there that allow people to farm and to fish in the ocean. From Pu'ulaina all the way down, extending out into the ocean, there's actually a line of ahu, or hills, that provide fishing grounds for things like akule and opelu. And in there, Pele, forming lava tubes that allow fresh water to be injected out under the seafloor, you have this kind of relationship between Pele and Kamapua'a. And their child was Opelu Kauha'alilo Nui. And again, that line of pu'u on land serves as the locational devices for the fishermen on the ocean, and also serves to create the best form of opelu grounds. Lance, what was the final result of the case that went to the U.S. Supreme Court regarding this area?
So I think many people know that, so what happened was the Hawaii Supreme Court said that until the claims of the Hawaiian people are resolved, that the state cannot sell lands from the Crown Lands Trust. Governor Lingle appealed that to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, as to federal law, there is no restriction on selling lands from the Crown Lands Trust. The U.S. Supreme Court did not say anything about any limitations based on state law. And I think in order to avoid a constitutional cataclysm, Office of Hawaiian Affairs and the state settled that in order for any Crown lands to be sold, that the legislature, both houses of the legislature, both have to vote by 2/3 to allow it. And so what the Hawaii Supreme Court did was it dismissed the case once that bill was passed. But the individual Hawaiians in the case objected. They said there should be no possibility until the claims are resolved. And so at least under Hawaii state law, the issue about whether or not Crown lands can be sold is basically undecided, because it went back to the Hawaii Supreme Court and then it was settled. So that issue has not been directly resolved by the Hawaii Supreme Court.
But the call and the issues have been heard, right?
That's right.
So Wahikuli, noisy place. The noise has been heard. The next mele after that for Naniwale Paunau. It's another place that I appreciate having this mele on this album, because you have names like Paunau that have other forms that all come together. And in the lyrics for Paunau, it mentions the limu a'ala o mokuhinia, the fragrant seaweed of mokuhinia. And another form of the name Paunau is Pa'una'u, which is the name of the rain that causes the na'u, which is the gardenia, to be fragrant. And so Pa'una'u, the upland fragrant flowers, and you have the lowland fragrant limu. It really ties the whole ahupua'a together. What's the present status of all these different issues, Lance?
So there's all sorts of cases, and Mauka cases have been determined with finality, and now their folks have moved in there. It was an affordable housing project. The Front Street Apartments case has dragged on in federal court for years now. And the federal court heard the matter just a couple of weeks ago, and then the other case, which really had to do with the area directly over the Huliāmahi fish pond, that has basically been sitting up on appeal for over 5 years now. The appellate courts have not made a decision. So in some cases it's been resolved with finality, and in other cases it's still going forward. Got it.
So Huliāmahi fish pond, so interesting. You had mentioned a little bit before, but where actually was Huliāmahi fish pond?
Well, at least according to the maps, it was mostly in Moali'i, although I think the southern part of it may have crossed over into Paunau.
So are we looking at around the cannery mall?
Now there's it's canalized, there's a channel, Kahoma Channel, but before it was more diffuse in that area and then subject to flooding, which is why they created the channel. But yeah, so the cannery basically is right on the other side of that marshy area.
Again, through these type of place names, we get a glimpse into history. So the pond wasn't incidentally named Alamihi. We can imagine that Alamihi crabs were profuse in that area. All of these different foods that we no longer really depend upon. And just like the o'opu of Kahoma, I'm pretty sure not many people, maybe a few more people eat alamihi than do o'opu, but alamihi is so delicious. And it's one of those resources that if we manage our areas well, it can come back into our DNA. We can feed our DNA. The second to last song that we're going to sing now, I was asked to compose this, and it's called Hei Noa no Paiahu. Facing threats of industrial development, the Pono Power Coalition intervened in a Public Utilities Commission proceeding that would impact existing archaeological sites as well as cultural and natural resources. Hei Noa no Paiahu honors the enduring kupa of Paiahu and the various names of aina, winds, waters, and species that thrive in the ahupua'a. Along with recalling these names through our voices, I share that the inclusion of these phenomena also allude to deeper messages of social and environmental impact upon Paiahu and reflects hope for current and future conservation efforts. It was actually a good fun project to compose this mele, Hei Noa no Paiahu. I hope you enjoy it.
Aina
gosh, I hate watching myself. But that camera work was pretty skillful. This is really salt and pepper. And you barely saw any of my salt on those videos, so I'm so thankful for them.
I agree. It was spicy. It was a spicy video. No salt, all pepper.
That's it. That's how it is. Hot, right? Are you feeling hot?
Ooh, a little bit, yeah. It's a little warm.
Paiahu, I actually was able to spend some time there during this isolation period. A family member of mine came back from California. They had to self-quarantine for 14 days. My cousin happened to have a rental in Wailea, and we ended up staying in Wailea. So if you don't know, if you didn't hear the Keone Makalai o Wailea, where part of Wailea is in the ahupua of Paiahu. Now, when we go to these areas, right, we're kind of like overwhelmed by, it's mostly transplants, and it's mostly tourism-based or tourist-based. What I loved staying there during the self-isolation period was we went to all of those beaches mentioned in that mele. We went to Wailea Beach, we went to Ulua, Mokapu, Niu Kauila, and it was all natives. By that, I mean all local people. No tourists. Well, there was a few tourists, but you see all the poles up. You see people there having a great time. The language that you hear is familiar to us. The music that you hear is familiar to us. And it was so refreshing, so refreshing. And so I was able to think about this mele and how if we allow the space to become open for a little bit, the natives can come back in and repopulate. And that's the bird species and the plant species that I was able to mention in the mele. But there are people who actually consider that area to be a barren desert. And so, Lance, what has your experience been there?
So, I know that some people just think that all of the land above what's watered in Wailea is a barren desert. But I, would encourage folks to connect with the lineal descendants and the cultural practitioners, and I believe they also work with the Sierra Club to allow public hikes once a month or so forth in Paiahu and Keauho and Palauea. And you'll be very surprised that it's not a barren desert at all. It's a huge, massive willy forest. Yeah. And if you look closely, you can see things like a vikiviki, nehe, a koko. It's all there. But if you're used to seeing all of the manicured landscape of the Wailea resort, it's easy to miss giant willy forest.
Yeah. It's something that I find important would be to remember that maybe they want us to think that it's barren. But the name itself, Paiahu, means rows of ahu, around which were grown massive crops of uala, sweet potato. So if it's a barren place, why were they able to grow such prolific crops of uala? So we are now dependent on the water, and all of those properties are dependent on the water that comes in from, I think, the Spreckles Ditch or over from
Central Maui.
Central Maui. So our kupuna were not. And part of decolonizing our mana'o is to remember, through place names like this, that actually our kupuna survived there for eons, and we could actually go back to that as a viable lifestyle as well.
Absolutely.
Well, it's that time of the program where we kind of have to wrap things up, but I am so honored to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to help MC this. Huliāmahi, coming together, just in participating with us via the stream, he Huliāmahi no kela. That is indeed a unification. Our mana'o now is more on the same level. Our intentions can be set, and we can move together. No kamaikai no kapono kalahui. So thank you for joining us. I'd also like to extend my biggest mahalo. Last month and this month, we've been able to crash my sister's house here. Thank you, Mariah Mossman, for allowing us to use your space. We'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors, Kanai Okana and Kahuli Leo Le'a. as well as, of course, all of the community groups of Maui that we were able to celebrate today. Aloha Aina on Maui, it's strong. We have, I think, 168,000 people-ish, 170,000 people. And all of our communities here on Maui don't run together. You know, we're kind of separated. But that allows us to actually get to know our places. Hele no alewa. We thoroughly familiar. And in the mele that were shared today, we get a chance to see these places from our points of view. We get a chance to spread our specific form of aloha aina for these places to the world. So thank you for joining us once again. If you're interested in this particular album, I want to tell you that a number of the songs on the album, Huliāmahi Volume 1, were not featured today in our presentation. And you can only hear them if you purchase Huliāmahi Volume 1 through mele.com. And also, once again, the Leina Honua Pi'ilani songbook is available through Kamehameha Publishing, along with the 2 CDs that accompany it. Leina Honua Pi'ilani, I Kahanohano. The area known as Na Honua Pi'ilani wears glory as its garland. This is a song from Maui. This is a song for West Maui, but it's not separated geographically from the rest of the island. The feeling that we get from the mele, Hawaii Aloha, bleeds over into this mele, Leina Honua Pi'ilani by Mima Apo. It's a song that allows us to wear the glory of Maui as our lei. We invite you now to sing along with us. This is such a poignant mele. There are other places that have the same mele that have the same tune, but because I'm from Maui, and it just gets me right in the feels. We'd like to sing this song. Sing along with us. Got it?
I'll try.
Okay. Thank you once again for joining us. E kala I o hauola I ka e hukei. E la I nei e kilohi nei I ka makani. E ke kai hone o ke awa I ki ka ahe one. Uala I o e me na hono a pi'ilani. Leina hono a pi'ilani I ka hano hano. I ka hano hano. I ka hano hano. A ka malu ulu o lele ha'ahe o nei. I ka loko mai ka ino ke akua. E ka lehua o lihau I ka wekiu. Me ka maile o halona e aala nei. E hali a I ka wai o ke hia. Hui pu mai me na hono a pi'ilani. Leina hono a pi'ilani I ka hano hano. I ka hano hano. I ka hano hano. A ka malu ulu o lele ha'ahe o nei. I ka loko mai ka I o ke akua. I ka loko mai ka I o ke akua. Once again, I'm Cody Pueopata. This is Lance Collins. Thank you for joining us. Mahalo nui. See you next time. Ahui ho.